This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing.
Welcome to Tough Talk Tuesday. As always, I'm your host, Lucas Biggers. Alongside me, I got a array of people. We got Malachi, Sakura, James, Rob. Everybody's on. I think we've been missing our boxing talk. We've had a few weeks off just to have a little summer vacay, so to speak, but we're going to get back into the thick of things here. We're not going to have another Tuesday off for quite some time. I thank you all for joining me. And let's jump right into it. It's Vargas dethroning Magsayo. Guys, one, did you agree with it? Because, I mean, it was a pretty close fight. Two, do you want to see the rematch? Who wants to lead this off?
I guess I'll go. I mean, I was
Everybody quiet.
with Vargas. I like Vargas's moves, and the I was impressed by the skill level. I didn't think it was quite as high, but you know how you live up to your opponent sometimes, and they'll take you to that point where you can really view, just how good a boxer is. I didn't find it close. I didn't think it was a close match. I thought that Vargas dominated much of the fight. Even with that knockdown, I still felt that the majority of the rounds I would have preferred to be Vargas if I was someone, boxing. So that was my situation with that. I did kind of go in feeling like Vargas would be able to be a new champion. And the reason why was because of different things that I saw against Magsayo in the Russell fight. It seemed like he needed to tighten up on some things, which he said he did, but we could still see that there was, kind of some missing elements in his armor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mari determined that was a lie.
Yeah.
So you didn't have it close. Did anybody on the panel have it close?
I thought it was close, sure.
James,
I think I was one. I could go back and check my score. 115, 112, or 13, or whatever. Yeah, it was a good close fight, and stylistically, it was a wonderful matchup.
But do you want to see a rematch?
No, there's no need for a rematch.
No need for rematch.
No, not at all.
Well, it wasn't that close.
I mean, regardless, I just don't care to see one. There's a lot of bait in the division. And it's time to move up and on, conquer the next one. And who knows who that's going to be? I mean, there's a probable fight maybe there with Figueroa. He just won. They're all in the same weight division now. And they're both hard punchers, so that could be a really, really great match. And there's a few others in the division that this could be fantastic. It's a good move. Featherweight division has got a lot of talent, so let's see as opposed to a rematch, let's see if some more talent step up and in and see how it goes. But we got a good champion in Ray Vargas. He's defended well at next division down, so super bantam, and he's at featherweight now. Did extremely well. That's the second fight in that division. He represents it well. He's got a good body for it, good height, good length. Good boxing skills, good punching skills. This could be a good run for him, as he had at the 118, or 122, I should say. This could be really good. Could be very interesting.
Okay. So my take, since I actually watched a damn fight at 122 pounds, I do kind of. Now, that being said, first and foremost, I actually did watch this fight. It's under 130 pounds, so no, I do not want to see a rematch. However,
wow,
a lot of interesting things in this fight, James. For one, let's start with Ray Vargas. But I believe he actually had like a 2-year hiatus before this fight, right?
Yeah, he had a series of injuries. I think it was a knee injury and maybe a hand injury or something.
It was a 2-year hiatus. I was actually very surprised on that. how well he fought, being off of 2 years and fighting the champ and such a high caliber opponent. So I really was impressed with that. My issue though with Vargas is the hiatus, because he has been stripped of the title before due to inactivity. And as you see, he's a hell of a fighter. So we need to see more of him, especially climbing up in the ranks and climbing up into different divisions, because that's where you prove yourself, in my opinion. But he's a good looking fighter at 122. I thought the fight was close because of the knockdown. I thought it was close because of that. Mark had a lot of power. He has a lot of power, and he showcased it in the fight. But you got to give extreme amount of credit to the corner of Ray Vargas, because as soon as they got on the fighter telling him to pull the distance and stop letting Mark get in close, he did just that and was able to get the victory because of it. If he would have continued to let Mark come in like he was doing, it would have been dangerous. It would have been a different tilt in that fight. And you know, we could have seen a knockout. Or Mark could have won on points because he was landing the heavier punches on the inside. It was a chess match. Vargas team get credit because they did what they were supposed to do. Thanks for allowing me to watch this fight at 122 pounds. I wasn't that impressed, but I wasn't that impressed.
We're losing you a little bit there.
Malachi, what did Vargas do that handed him this victory? Like,
he fought at the range that was best for him. The majority of the fight, he kept Mark from. And Mark made a lot of mistakes. I followed Mark for a long time. I was his first American interview. He made a lot of mistakes that he had cleared up early on when he came over to Wildcard Gym. But he made a lot of the same. If you go back and watch his fights prior, he kind of reverted back to that. I think the height differential. Just Vargas has a ton of boxing skills. He can bang it out, like, you know, quote unquote Mexican style if he has to, but he can also box. And I think that's what we saw him do in this fight. And he had Mark at times lunging inside, missing wildly, off balance, attempting to throw one punch knockout. And that cost him. This is an outstanding division. I mean, you look at the top 8 guys: Warrington, Woods, Laura, Navarrete, Russell. There's so many fights to be made in this division. For anyone to ignore it is crazy to me. This is one of the more stacked divisions. You even got Isaac Adobe, Leah Santa Cruz. There's got so many guys here. I wouldn't mind seeing them fight again in the future. I just think an immediate rematch, no. I would like to see Vargas fight the guy he was supposed to be, is mandated at one point to fight, Gary Russell Jr. If he comes back from his injury, because I think now, having seen this fight, I think we can all agree that after he hurt his I believe it was his left shoulder in that fight against Magsayo, he just was not the same fighter. So I'd like to see him get a chance to come back and win his title back.
That's good.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with Mally on a couple of points, but the main one is just the distance. I know, Lucas, you asked that question about how did he win, and yeah, he knew his distance, he knew his range well. He was landing a lot more punches. Like, even though Magsayo was, basically had more powerful punches when he landed, it seemed to me that Vargas was landing a lot more, and he was putting together more combinations too. I saw a difference in levels, which is crazy because that was Magsayo is the champion. Well, was the champion at that time. So anyway, I think they can fight later on. I think Vargas did mention that a fight with Leo Santa Cruz was in the works, and so that's who he would prefer to fight next. So we can look forward to seeing that fight, and then possibly Figueroa. I don't know if he's ready for a pressure fighter like Figueroa, though.
I don't know.
You got to be in super duper shape and not your first fight coming out, if you want to deal with him, because his level of activity is just, it's just off the record, like, because he is like really energetic and has that athletic ability, and he's got amazing stamina. So you got to deal with all that.
That fight can be made though, and that's a good matchup. That's a really good matchup. That would be an amazing matchup there.
And let me point out just a couple of things too, as well, for Vargas. I mean, guys, he's 5'10". He's 5'10". He's gonna be a problem at 122 pounds. He's gonna be hard to figure out with the distance for anybody, because that's extremely tall at that weight. And the second thing too is going back on the corner. He is trained by Nacho Beristain, so he does actually have a very good Hall of Famer in his corner as well.
Yeah,
that's one thing I noticed right quick is that Nacho Beristain in Vargas' interview intervened a little bit, or interjected, I should say, and mentioned that was his 29th world champion. That was very, very impressive. I not looked this up or done any follow up on that, but I don't know that anyone can make that claim.
Yeah, that's an amazing career, and he's not done yet. So, I mean, and just realizing that it's 2022 and he just got another world champion. I mean, it's a pretty amazing record for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's an amazing boxing club there in Mexico City.
Yeah.
I'd love to go sometime. There's no doubt
this weekend.
There's no doubt. Vargas's reach, like you said, Rob. I think that's going to be a problem for pretty much anybody. And this fight definitely seeing him back after the long layoffs. Hopefully, he can stay healthy because, like you guys said, I mean, he's going to rule the roost, so to speak. I'd love to see all these fights we can pair him up against. Let's jump ship now from this fight.
Also one other point on his height, that also makes it very intriguing as to whether he can, go up in other weight classes and really compete with, 130 and 135, which is also really busy because the potential is there. So that's also something that's really intriguing.
Sure. All right, let's jump to another fight. Let's talk Chisora coming out victorious and calling out Wilder. What did you guys think of that? And is Wilder even going to come back? I mean, go ahead, Marco.
I wasn't expecting the fight to be as entertaining as it actually was, because I watched it and then I found myself watching a fight like, I'm enjoying this fight. They're throwing massive. Chisora for the main part, his body work was very impressive in this fight. You knew I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to continue that pace. It did slow down a little bit, but I came away impressed with him. Fighting Wilder, no, Wilder will lay him on the canvas. So I think that if Chisora should probably ride off in the sunset right now, because coming off of this is a revenge match. He got Pulev back for I believe losing to him in a fight earlier in their career. This is a good time for him to call it quits. In my opinion, there's really, because come on, is he going to beat Alexander Usyk? No. Is he going to beat Tyson Fury? No. Is he going to beat Wilder? No. None of the top. He's not going to be a world champion. Ortiz even. I would take Ortiz in a second over him. So this would be a good time for him to hang him up.
But can he make a lot of money if he sticks around? And I think that's what's key in his mindset. Plus, the man is in great shape. You just described him as in his abilities. So it's like, if he still has the fight in him, who are we to tell him to stop? And then calling out Wilder. Who else is calling out Wilder? Even after Fury beat him twice. I don't hear too many people calling out Wilder. Do you guys?
Frank Sanchez wants a piece of him.
But he's smart. I kind of agree with what Malachi is saying. I think he's coming off 3 straight losses, so he's finally got back in the win column, and he knows he needs to make some money out of this win. I think he's calling out Wilder. This is a retirement thing. He's hoping to just press the right button. He lands that fight, then he'll hang him up. But I think this kind of was his last hurrah, I think.
Yeah, I mean, don't you think it is a great fight for him to retire on, though? A Wilder fight? I mean, it's a great comeback opponent for Wilder, too. Like, it's a good
end your career on the camp.
Yeah, Wilder. It's a good fight for Wilder.
It's the money part that makes it, enticing for him.
I totally agree with that, but maybe Tyson's not the right foil for them. I say there's got to be a few other heavyweights out there that might fit the bill, and then if it was potentially Wilder, but I see that it'll come.
I couldn't hear anything that James just said. Is it just me?
James, you sound like a robot right now. It's like.
Let me throw shade on here because that's what I do.
That's what I do.
Wilder right now, from what I'm seeing, is happily become an R&B singer. Did y'all see that bullshit? And everything.
He ain't making no money doing that.
Everything. So Wilder, if you're listening, take the fight. Just fight somebody. Damn.
Yeah, I mean he's thinking he can make money doing other stuff. I'm not so sure about that, man. You should go back to fighting. Go back to fighting.
Well, I mean, if Wilder can do it, and he wants to come back, that's the issue with me. Is like, is the desire there to even come back, knowing that you knocked out basically everybody that you fought. You just didn't win those 2 fights with Fury. You still, to me, if I'm Wilder, I would be thinking, well, I know I can beat most of the people in the division still, just with knockout power. And I'm not feeling like he has that urge anymore. And I could be wrong, of course, but just the fact that we haven't seen him fighting anything since the Fury fight at this point, or even schedule anything, is leading me to believe that maybe he's not, as hungry for a comeback as maybe some of his fans are.
I agree with you there. He doesn't seem to want to get back in the ring, so maybe staying out's good for him. Dale, good to have you back, buddy. Says White called out Wilder. Listen, Chisora looking for a payday. Wilder dispatches him 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. I think most of us are saying that. I think, like we said, like Sakura just said, the only X factor is Wilder's hunger, really. And whether he's even willing to step back in the ring. He might not want to.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Wilder fight Frank Sanchez. Personally.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a great fight, too. That would be highly competitive to see if Wilder could set up something against Frank Sanchez, being that he has a superior boxing skill. We would have to see what happened, in his last fight.
Because in my opinion, Wilder was losing both the Ortiz fights up to the point that he caught Ortiz.
Right.
And I think Frank Sanchez, he's not Ortiz, but he has a lot of similarities, and he's a very slick fighter. I think he could give Wilder some problems. If Wilder couldn't catch him, he could pull out the win.
I wish he was a little faster, though. I see. It seemed like he's a little slow sometimes, or I don't know if he was just like that with who was it, FA, or what was going on there. But for that particular fight, I found him to be a little slow, as far as speed is concerned. Other than that, yeah, you made a case for it being a similar fight setup as Ortiz was.
Yeah. All right, let's we did kind of hint at a Figueroa before. Let's jump to a different Figueroa and talk Omar Figueroa, who is signed with Broner. This fight for me is a must win on both sides. It really is. I mean, how long has it been since we've seen Broner in the ring?
Phew, has it been 2 years already or 3?
At least 16 months without looking at it. I mean, at least 16 months. But you got Broner and Omar Figueroa both going at it. I mean, I honestly don't think that this is a great fight for Broner. Figueroa likes to stay active, and unfortunately, that's Broner's problem is he cannot stay active. He tries to pick and choose these punches, and he's not Floyd Mayweather. He's not as accurate. So it does not play well to the judges, and I honestly think this is a horrible matchup for Broner. But I did kind of want to get your guys' take on it.
For me, I would say when I first heard about this fight possibly being made, I thought it was like a joke or something. I'm like, is this a joke? We all saw Omar Figueroa not perform that well in his last fight. Then you turn around and you think about Broner in his last fight, which also was a poor performance. Now you putting these two poor performance people, boxers, together in a matchup, and it's like, who's gonna decide to actually throw some punches this time and rack up some points? As you said, Lucas, Broner with his
Hesitant.
He's very iffy about when he wants to actually, pull the trigger and box and really throw some punches. And Figueroa with his type of movement and the awkwardness, I don't know if Broner is going to be able to figure out when to decide to fire on him. And I guess I shouldn't be using these gun analogies, guys, but I mean, that's what's coming out. So deal with me, okay?
I mean, I don't even know if Broner can make the 140. They set it for 140.
That's another good point.
I have my doubts on that.
Well, I mean, does anybody know what he's at right now in training? I mean, he looked like he was in good shape from the training videos, but I don't know if it's at 140 right now. Like, he was definitely not looking like he was 138. You know what I'm saying? Like in the range.
Right.
James, we lost James, huh?
Listen, Broner has been begging for a fight for the last 2 years since he's been out of the ring. Okay, he's been begging for that fight. And now he finally has one. Just to put some context here, the fight originally was set up for April 2018. Okay, and it was canceled because Figueroa suffered an injury, and then they tried to redo it again, and then Broner had some criminal issues going on, so it got canceled again. So this is really a comeback fight that they're re-putting on the docket, and it is a fight that both men have to win. Okay, now just giving a couple of quotes. Let's start with Adrian, the problem Broner here. Quote, I'm going in there to try and stop Figueroa. I'm going to take the fight to him and go ahead and get him out of there. What I expect from him is the same gruesome Figueroa that we always see. He'll try to make it a rough fight. Every fighter is different, but I don't think he'll be hard to hit. This is coming from Adrian Broner, who hasn't had a knockout since 2016.
And he says he doesn't think that it's a problem to hit Omar
Figueroa,
right? He's saying it's not going to be a problem.
He thinks it's not. Yeah. Figueroa comes back though and says, "I'm excited to move on to the next phase of my life and career, especially now that my mental health is at the forefront of everything I do." So it sounds like he had a few skeletons in his closet he needed to clear out. So you know what? He might have a fierce Figueroa in this fight based on what he's saying. He goes on to say, having a clear mind has been the best thing to happen to me. Now I'm able to focus 100% on my boxing career. So the fight is set for August 20th. He said for August 20th. So we shall see what happens. But one thing I can guarantee you, people will be watching and in attendance. Because Adrian Broner.
Right. Like he still draws a crowd, and that's the thing that keeps getting him fights. Every time you think he's out, here he comes, and he's landed him another fight with someone who's got a name, you know. And the thing about Omar is the potential for him was massive when he first hit, you know, the ring and started being televised. I mean, I was paying attention to him. I thought that he was a real talent, and he does still have talent. I hate to hear that he has some mental challenges and things like that that could be affecting his career. But his younger brother is now outshining him, you know, with the performances. So um, it can't be a camp situation.
Who
They mostly are in the same camps, I believe, out in Palm Springs, California. So I'm just wondering, like, you know, what is he going to be doing so different this time that's going to allow him to, you know, to really be able to perform better. And then as far as Broner's concerned, that's the main thing I'm concerned about is like the awkwardness of Omar is going to make it challenging for Broner to be able to hit him. Number one, because he doesn't throw that much. And number two is because he likes to be really accurate when he does throw. So I'm seeing it completely different than what Broner is selling it at right now. And I guess the key word is selling it.
Malachi, you've been pretty quiet. I'm interested in your thoughts on this one. Is he going to be able to even get in range? I mean,
I agree with you. I think this is stylistically a bad fight for Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner always seems to take, several rounds to get going, and he does pick his punches a little too carefully. He's a guy I think that likes to admire his work, so to speak, sometimes. But I can see why they picked Figueroa. He's coming off of 2 losses. I believe he was stopped in the 6th round in his last fight. He's still a name. He was, I believe, the 135 WBC world champion at one point before moving up to 140. I don't know. I'm interested in the fight because I think Broner's going to sell the fight. I think he's really going to, he's one of those guys like Rolly that will sell the fight and people want to watch. I just think it's a bad matchup for Adrian Broner. I'm going to favor Figueroa personally.
Okay.
Pretty highly. Like we talked about, just with stylistically, the reach. I mean, it is pretty big reach advantage. I'm going to say probably about 5 inches in favor of 5 or 6 inches in favor of Figueroa, but it's pretty massive. Luckily for him, it's not like Figueroa fights that way. He's not going to use the jab and keep him at range. He does hunch over, and he likes to mix it up on the inside. So Broner at least has that for him, but if he chooses, it's going to be really hard for Broner to even get in to land anything. Sidetrack with this comment here. Carl says Wilder is responsible for these exhibitions from retired boxers. What? Maybe we're missing something here, but comment back, Carl. Tell me what you're talking about.
I get what he's saying. I'll tell you. He's saying that Deontay Wilder, and to be honest with you, really, the heavyweight division as a whole is lackluster compared to what it was back in those days. So he's pretty much saying that because it's lackluster and Deontay Wilder's inability to establish major dominance, I guess, in his heavyweight ring is leading to the old boxers now wanting to come out and fight in exhibitions just to pull the fanfare. That's what I believe he's saying, and he's saying exactly what I'm saying. That's how poorly he has performed. But really, Carl, it's the heavyweight division as a whole. And if my father is watching, because I do think this is a good topic, good point. But back in those days, there was a lot of, especially the heavyweight divisions, which was the cream of the crop. There was a lot of personalities there. There were a lot of guys and a lot of fighters who had the charisma, they had the personality to take on the sport and transcend it to being one of the biggest sports in the world. We don't have that anymore. And Deontay Wilder didn't do it either. So I kind of have to agree with him.
How are you gonna blame Wilder though? The heavyweight division, everyone started proclaiming it dead.
That's why I
When the
said it's the whole
Klitschko's began to
Malachi.
dominate. Everyone all of a sudden, oh, the heavyweight division's horrible. Why? Because one guy was so good that he almost broke Joe Lewis's defense record. I mean, so
Was he good though? I mean, he didn't really have a ton of competition.
But wait, he's talking about Klitschko, right?
Exactly. Yeah, he just
Klitschko's?
leaned on people. You know, he held on for dear life in a lot of cases. It's hit and miss. It's hard for me to say that Klitschko wasn't good.
Has been,
He
always
just
been a
didn't
part of PJ.
have also any kind of competition to go up.
But I hear where Mally is going. Mally is saying, you know, Wilder helped bring back the heavyweight division of what we do see today, because prior to that, we only had the Klitschko's as champions. And he secured, well, Stavern first and then him securing the WBC championship and bringing it back to the US. So I can't blame Wilder when he just had two amazing, super, you know, just energetic fights that, you know, that everybody loved to see. Fury versus Wilder. Both of those fights were amazing. I don't see, I really don't understand how he can blame the current situation of exhibition fights on Wilder when you got, you know, Floyd Mayweather, you got
what you just said.
Mike Tyson, you got all these other people out here that, you know, were actually in exhibitions, including, you know, Jake Paul and them. So, like, how is that Wilder? Wilder hasn't been in any.
You don't think, though, that if Klitschko would have been American, he would have been the biggest star in sports in America?
Which one?
Yeah.
Well, and that's predominantly because the majority of his fights was in Europe, right? Or UK. The
Germany,
majority
a lot
of his fights
were in Germany and the Ukraine.
Germany.
No, but what he's saying is, if he was American, then they would have thrown, all the support would have been behind Klitschko.
You wouldn't hear all the time all the
Malachi.
excuses about,
when does America support anybody in boxing anymore?
It would have been flipped to, oh, he's so great. There's nobody could beat it. If he would have been American, it would have been a totally different story. The narrative would have been different.
I don't know.
I agree. The marketing would have been totally different as well. So I could see where the fans would have been behind him, especially him dominating for so many years in the sport of boxing as a heavyweight champion. Yeah, that would have been totally different if he was American. But the truth of the matter is, without Wilder coming into the picture after the Klitschko's and AJ as well. And then later Fury, because, you know, even though Fury had to win over Klitschko, he kind of disappeared for a while with his, you know, mental illness. So, you know, you basically had those three people, those three boxers that was helping to bring boxing, heavyweight boxing, back to American fans in an exciting way. So that's why I can't fault Wilder for exhibitions now.
I don't know. Wilder, he did so poorly. I mean, that's what he was saying. So I mean, poorly.
He did so poorly at what? The two fights were freaking.
I got to come back
to
that
were so
comment.
Amazing. Like, those two fights were highly competitive fights.
Well, he fought 3 times, right?
3 times. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you're talking Wilder's 3.
I'm sorry. I kept saying 2, but 3 times. But, you know, they were all excited.
She want to forget the 3rd time because Wilder got battered in that one. And she's a Wilder
No,
fan.
I think the second time was worse. I think the second time it was more of a dominant performance of Fury. But the third time I thought it was a very, like, you know, it was a back and forth type fight.
I mean,
I'm just playing cigar.
I mean, if Carl's talking about his performance, Wilder is only power punching, you know, this, and I think Wilder did help bring back some excitement into the heavyweight division. Obviously, the big knockouts that was missing for a long time. You know, the people want to see, you know, reinvented Mike Tyson. The problem is Wilder's boxing ability is nowhere near the legend of a Mike Tyson, okay? He was horrific. He lived completely on his power. Luckily for him, he had some God-type strength that he could knock these dudes out with. Because if not, let's face it, even towering Inferno as he is, and he is one big man, he is a horrific boxer. I mean,
It's true.
very bad.
That is
Let,
true.
let me break
His
it down.
feet were never
It's the
set
heavyweight
correctly.
division.
I mean, the very basics of boxing, Wilder was getting wrong, but he was able to overcome that with
Right.
the equalizer, you know?
Right. Very unorthodox fighter for
Yeah,
sure.
but
Yeah.
But he didn't start out that way. I
Hold on.
mean, it's just that's how his professional career went, because he started getting so slack because he didn't have to have those skills. I think that's what happened.
It
It's
caught
like
up to him.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you don't even need to use your
Let me-
your boxing skills, and you're knocking out every opponent you have. Why would you start incorporating boxing again? You're like, I'm invincible. So he started believing in his own hype.
but let me
I
Let me
think with
explain.
Wilder,
Oh, Malachi, whoever, go take it.
I think with Wilder, I think that from his fans during his run, he got way too much praise. And I think though that since his losses, I think the pundits and the haters have been a little too hard on him as well. It's like a mixed thing with him.
Rob, what were you gonna say?
listen. It's the division as a whole. It's not just one heavyweight. It's the division as a whole. Mike Tyson, which we thought Wilder could mirror, had a great trainer in Kasamoto. He had a great trainer, a legendary trainer who done the basics. The man knew how to box. Wilder does not. Then you go to Anthony Joshua, who actually can box, who we thought would be a next one, and he has no heart. He's like the
Wait, you think Anthony Joshua
steer-
can box? I mean, I think he's an okay boxer, but like, I don't
He
think
had,
he's very.
he's like the scarecrow in the Wizard of Oz. He
Wait a
has no heart.
He maybe
Tin
not
Man
the
with
best
the-
boxer.
Damn.
One of
but
them.
Okay.
he's
I
a
just think
better-
he doesn't
Yeah.
have any chin. I think he has heart. I just don't think he has a chin. But go ahead.
And no upper body movement. He comes in on a straight line.
100 times better than Joshua.
I don't think he can
Wilder.
box that well, personally.
Say what,
And
James?
unfortunately,
What I'm saying is that Joshua is a million times better than Wilder when it comes to boxing.
Well, fundamentally, yes.
I mean, I
Fundamentally,
know my
Yeah, I
grandmother
think that's
is
what he's
too,
talking about.
so-
Yeah.
right?
Go ahead, Rob.
yeah. So let me finish. Unfortunately, my father's heir had the great legendary Muhammad Ali, and I'm scared and afraid, guys, that we'll never see that type of talent come through, especially within the heavyweight division, which with what we're getting right now, we might never see a fighter like Ali again. And I'll even go back on something that,
Yeah,
that I
that's
don't
a
like to do.
unicorn. Of course, you're never going to see Muhammad Ali again. That's a
But
unicorn.
I'll even go back on something that I hate to say, but in one of the comments earlier, they said Mayweather destroyed it, or Mayweather helped destroy it too. Mayweather doesn't even, to me, have the legacy or can hold to the legacy that Muhammad Ali had either. So, unfortunately, I don't know if we'll ever see a Muhammad Ali in our generation.
Well, Ali was great, not only in the ring, but outside of it as well. I think Floyd's kind of unanimously hated. I mean, he can't walk down the street without getting like spit on. Meanwhile, Ali could have billions of people around and no security guards because nobody's gonna mess with Ali, right?
They loved him.
Yeah, it's the difference. Is he?
Well, let's get it straight. No, at first they didn't love him. Okay.
Well, no,
so-
there was a lot of controversy there.
Yeah, like
And
let's
there
be
was
honest.
draft
like,
dodger
well,
type talk.
yeah, like there was a period where it was really a low point in his career, and his life was threatened because of his humanitarian
beliefs.
and beliefs. So let's not act like
Yeah.
he didn't go through a period of time where people were hating on him too.
And his
But-
religion, and at the time, the United States was just an awful place because racism was
Exactly.
the
Right.
thing. It was a
And
thing,
he
and it
spoke
still
out on
is.
it, and people
Still
didn't
is.
like
Look, it
that.
still
They didn't
is.
like when he actually spoke out on it. And that's the problem with society, is like when you're trying to make changes and you actually speak out on things, now you're the target, you're the hated person. So, I mean, yeah, there's never going to be an Ali. Let me just put it like that. Stop even trying to think that we're going to see another Ali again. I think that's an icon. Of course, he's a legend and a unicorn as far as how he was able to how do you say, adapt his styles throughout his career for what he needed to make, to win. So I don't think that's going to happen. But once again, why you going to point out Wilder?
I think we got to take off our nostalgia glasses.
Why we going to point out Wilder instead of just pointing out, like, hey, there's a lot of, like, I think the problem is more the frequency of the fights. I think the fighters today are not fighting as frequently as we did in prior generations, and that leaves, gaps and availability for other people to showcase their talent and have exhibitions, and for people to just fans to just do other things with their time. They're not enthralled in boxing or a specific boxer as much, because we're talking about people that fight twice a year, not 6 times a year or 7 times a year. Like the Four Kings were doing, they and even before that, people had to fight more often because that's how they fed their families. Now these paydays are so much bigger, they don't have to fight as many times per year.
Right.
So
Well,
that's what the gap is, basically.
Malachi started to lean towards something, and I think I know where he was going. He
Sorry,
was saying, to lay off the nostalgia a little bit. Were you going to go where I think you were going to go with that, Malachi?
Yeah, there's like all this crying about our fighters aren't as good. Like, why aren't we appreciating the fact that we got a 6'9", 275, 300-pound heavyweight world champion who can move like a cruiserweight? He can box. He can slug it out, as he proved against Wilder. Now I can see you saying, "Well, Fury doesn't have the resume right now." That what I mean. He doesn't, and that's his own fault too for this stuff that he went through, and some of it wasn't his fault with the mental issues, but the cocaine and everything, you can put that on him, right? But why do we do that? Why do we say, "Oh man, they were so much better"? Like, I'll be honest, I have a hard time seeing anybody beating Tyson Fury. He's 6'9", 275 pounds. You go back, and them dudes were like 6'2". Right. 215.
Yeah, it's a different. Those are bridge weights now. Like, those are bridge weights to me now, and we got heavyweights.
I think Andy Ruiz gives a lot of the old guys the business. I think Ortiz gives
Marciano would have been a cruiserweight.
Come on now, come on, y'all. No,
he would have got destroyed by these boys.
Look, this is a problem with sports, not just boxing, but sports in general. People want to compare like Babe Ruth to Mark McGwire and that kind of stuff. Look, the game changes. We change. We help adapt to the sport even better and come up with strategies that were not there before, right?
Right.
No.
So
the game,
not to mention steroids.
The game should change for the better. We are not getting the best fighting the best. Period. We are not.
We do occasionally.
We've seen Usyk fight Joshua. We've seen Fury fight.
Carl said he ain't doing it no more.
We're all in agreement. Those are the 4 best heavyweights.
Usyk is a cruiserweight. So let's stop. Usyk is a cruiserweight. He should never be in the damn heavyweight division in the first place.
But he beat a heavyweight. But he beat a heavyweight. That's the thing.
He's also put on
he dominated
or not, he beat a legitimate heavyweight. So now what?
Division is non-existent because the heavyweight he beat has no heart.
Usyk being a cruiserweight. He's 6'6". Go back and look at. He would have been called a giant in Muhammad Ali's day. Like, yeah, he's humongous. Now we're saying yeah, he's a small heavyweight.
Usyk's a brilliant boxer, and I'm sorry. I think I'm agreeing with Malachi. I think he's going to beat most people. Back in the day, it's just different. That's all. It's not better or worse. It's just difference. We can't even go
worse.
Sherman says Floyd destroyed boxing all around, not just the heavyweights. Now we're going to touch on this for a
So-
little bit, and we will move on. But I did want to at least acknowledge
It's still here. How's it destroyed? I mean, we're sitting here
Oh
talking.
my
about
God. Like, I don't agree with this. Trainer Sherman Henson is old school all the way. But at the same time, like, we are not going to put the blame for sports, for boxing's decreased numbers of fans solely at the foot of Floyd Mayweather when he had so many blockbuster mega fights that so many fans were actually looking at. Whether it was for hate or for love of Floyd, he was still bringing in the most ever watched boxing matches. So I can't see how that's destroying the sport. I really can't.
Look, Sherman Henson, Floyd didn't create no blueprint for anybody. He did was best and great for his career. There ain't a blueprint that says you have to follow the Floyd Mayweather direction or the Floyd Mayweather way. No, these guys out here in boxing right now don't have to follow that. Errol Spence can fight Terrence Crawford without the fanfare and still be a mega fight. Canelo can fight bigger fights and bigger opponents. They choose not to. Floyd didn't set up no damn blueprint and say, follow me. He did what's best for him in his career.
No, you're right. He didn't say follow me, but in essence, everybody else saw the way he was going about the business, and he went that way. Right?
I mean,
So,
they want to make big money too. I understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. But they're forgetting the beginning parts of his career in which, you know, he had to go through a lot of big, you know, major boxers at that point, and wasn't making that type of money. Yes.
This is a pretty boy.
Right.
Which
Like, they
really
want to skip over the rough part of his career and jump right to the money Mayweather part. And like, that's where I have a problem. It's like, nah.
It turned a lot of people off.
So what we're saying mainly is it's less on Floyd, more on Al Heyman.
Oh Lord!
Now you're not gonna do that either.
I am gonna do that. Danny Garcia versus
wait. You
Rod
gotta
Salt,
put on Bob
okay?
too.
I'm gonna do
Wait
that.
a minute.
Look, he has been setting
different
up
day.
these fights like the Danny Garcia, you know, fighting Rod Sulka. Come on, man! Like fights that shouldn't even be made. You know, where it's very, very low risk and high reward. You're getting $1 million for fighting somebody that's not even ranked in the goddamn division.
I mean, but there's other
Come on.
promoters.
Al
besides
Heyman is the
him.
one ruining boxing.
Okay, but there are other boxers. There's other boxing promoters that will connect. You know, they'll match up certain fights that we don't find competitive. Also, it's not just Heyman doing that. It's overall, it's all of these major promoters that are, you know, building up fighters and having them, you know, do a what do you call it? Not a tune-up fight, but like a stay busy fight.
I'm not.
I mean, they're all doing it, but I'm saying the thing I have an issue with is like if you're only fighting 2 times a year, and I'm a fan of yours as a boxer, then you should know like I'm losing interest in between your fights because like you're not fighting enough for me to be hyper into you the way we were able to do in other generations of boxing. You see what I'm saying? Like you're not engaged enough anymore with 2 fights a year. And that's if you do the 2 fights a year. You could get an injury in the one fight you did do, and then we don't end up seeing you for a whole nother year. So these are the challenges that we didn't used to have to face when boxers had to fight more often. You know, like in general, they could have fans that were able to follow them like every other month. They knew they were gonna see them. You know, it's more loyalty that way too, and you're more hype about a boxer. But if I'm only seeing you twice a year, and I like originally started out liking you, by the time 3 years is over, I'm freaking disgusted. I don't feel like looking at you no more. I don't feel like finding out when your fight is because I'm like, well, how was he in his last fight? I don't even know. Who did he fight last? And then nobody else can answer that question either without looking up box red. Like, that's a huge problem. And I'm saying that on the whole.
But back in the day, when you had fighters going like 5 or 6 times a year or more, there was a lot of in-between opponents in there.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of guys doing their debut. There was a lot of guys doing their, you know, second, third fight. There was a lot of fighters who were, you know, up and comers,
right?
Still challenging and losing, you know, getting whooped, whatever. It just looked a little different because they were still fighting.
You go back
that many
through
times.
some of the legends.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I mean,
Resumes,
but the
they
frequency
They
have
were
a
was
lot of
all
guys.
mega
You're
fights
right.
basically,
You're
but
right.
they would
The
they were
frequency
staying
was
busy.
frequency was a lot higher. That's
Mhm.
correct.
Yeah.
Now these guys show up
But
twice a year and they make 300 mil. I would do
but
the
what
same thing.
happened to? Let me ask you a question though. What happened to the promoters now? What happened to
There's
them? What? No, here's the question. No, because why are we hearing De La Hoya at Golden Boy say, "I can't make these fights happen for my fighter"? Why is Bob Arum saying, "I can't make these fights for Terrence Crawford"?
Because
You're the
Al Heyman
freaking
is not
promoter.
doing
You
business,
tell
man.
the guy who to fight.
That's not how it is, and you know it. I mean, that
It-
hasn't
it-
been boxing in a long time. Al Heyman does not want to do business outside of Al Heyman. I mean, number one, let's also talk about Al Heyman. He's violating the Ali Act. He's just doing it through a loophole, okay? He is managing and promoting these people. I mean, PBC is owned by Al Heyman, right? It's just a loophole. So instead of saying, oh, I'm managing them, I'm not really promoting them. And
Right. He's their
It's-
manager.
but he's clearly
yeah.
also the promoter, right? I mean,
Well, I
I think
think-
we can all agree to that. He's
think-
still doing it. It's just not technically in a
Well,
contract.
because they always have like TGB promotions, and then they allow some of their boxers to have their own promotional companies.
So there's like
like
there's a sub manager in there.
Yeah, it's like your management. Al Heyman is the major management making the negotiations and deals between these other subsidiary companies, which is the promoters or the promotional banner. So it's not like Lucas is making it seem like it's real nefarious and this and that, but he is functioning as a manager.
I mean,
like,
he's managing them, but he's also promoting them, is he not? I mean, the company of PBC is also
right.
promoting
The
them.
company entity is different than the actual
But it's owned by Al Heyman. See what I'm saying?
I understand what you're trying to say, but at the same time, it's still like you're not like you. It's not technically that he's doing that because these other promotional companies
different.
are who he's negotiating with.
But it's just a legal loophole. That's all that is.
Yeah,
It's so he does not get sued, but really he's violating the Ali Act. Let's not-
and TTB, those are legitimate promotional companies that they work with.
Correct.
The promos got lines only. Like these are actual promotion companies that are going to get paid for promoting the actual fight. That Al Heyman
If you have somebody like Al Heyman, if you have somebody like Al Heyman who's the advisor and advises you not to take the fight, how is that not stacking the deck right there? Because the promoter says, "I want you to fight Joe Blow," and Al Heyman comes in and says, "I advise you not to take that fight." And then guess what?
I'm going to make you more money. The money, follow the money. It's because I can make you more money if you do this instead. And that's how.
Okay, but don't be Charlo and come back and say I ducked you like he did Canelo when they offered him a contract, and then Al Heyman and them said, "Nah, we're not gonna do that." Didn't even try to renegotiate the contract. Just said no. Right? Then don't come back and tell me that I ducked you. I don't want to hear that.
I mean, look, I'm not saying Al Heyman's even the only one. Clearly, the WBC also does promoting as it does to Canelo and, other fighters, but mainly Canelo.
Yeah, they are the de facto promoter of Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah. So
we all know that. That's all pretty clear.
He's bringing in the most money for that organization. So, of course they're going to make allegiances for him, and allowances for him, being that he's bringing in the most money for their organization. And is that demeaning the organization, or is it just business that we as fans need to start understanding?
I think they definitely need to understand the business side a little more.
I think the Al Heyman and the money aspect, if he wasn't already, established and had a lot of money in the game, he would have been shut down a long time ago. That's just my opinion. I think if somebody else tried to do that first, who is a little bit lower, a little bit smaller, maybe, just starting out in the game, they would have shut that shit down.
I mean, but at some point, I mean, Al Heyman was actually a concert promoter. So at some point, he was that smaller guy that was coming into to boxing and moving people.
Well, I agree, but at that time, he was not violating the Ali Act like he is now.
Well, do we really know that there's not a violation? Is what I'm saying.
Technically, no, but
Okay,
you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. It's a loophole. He's going through the loophole. Let's move
that's
on.
quite a contradiction there, though. That's quite a contradiction because he's not really violating the law. That means he's not violating the law. He's worked around it.
It's a legal loophole, though, James.
That's exactly right.
You're a loophole.
Right. It's a loophole.
And it's only there.
Good. Lucas, business is business. Boxing is a business.
I mean, he's trying to say, I hear your point, Lucas. You're trying to say that that's stopping major fights from happening. But we've seen time and time again that these major fights are still happening. We just talked about one, Wilder versus Fury.
We'll
trilogy.
See. It's few and far between.
But it was few and far between. Like James is saying, in previous generations, every fight that these prize fighters had wasn't like for a major title or like it wasn't for a mega fight. They were a lot of stay busy guys in between that. They were doing the same things. They just was more of them. Like Rob is saying, they was more noteworthy names that you could put together to have like a Four King situation or Ali Frazier, all these different heavyweights that were back in the day. You just could have more of a mix up of mega fights. Now we're dealing with heavyweights that, like Malachi says, Fury should be considered more. He should be held in higher value than most most fans are taking them, basically. I mean, he should be bigger than that, but that's a diminishing of the heavyweight division and trying to rebuild it back up and have the interest that was established prior. We don't have that yet. I think that's like more of an overall decline that happened during the Klitschko years, and we still haven't gotten back the numbers yet.
Well,
I think we got to quit devaluing, the fighters in our generation and overvaluing fighters from previous generations. We're always comparing them. Why can't we just appreciate the fighters that are in our time and give them the credit that they deserve, rather than Floyd would have never made it through Hagler and Leonard and all that. Like, okay, that's conjecture. We don't know that,
right.
But what we do know is what Floyd did. There's like right now we know there's some outstanding fighters coming up that we should just give them their credit, like appreciate them in their own time instead of always trying to it wasn't as good as it was in the 80s.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you on that aspect. I'm more my gripe isn't with the boxers of today. My gripe is with all of the platforms and the different ways that you can miss boxing. Like I'm not even gonna say you can watch it, but you're more so missing some of the boxing matches that are actually happening right now, because I can't keep up with the numerous platforms. And I'm a huge boxing fan. So what does that say about the person that's just mildly a boxing fan? They definitely are not going to take the extra effort to find a DAZN or ESPN Plus or PBC on the lower card that comes on first.
There's really not that. There's really not that many though. I mean, you got ESPN, DAZN.
I gotta run. I gotta go close my store. But I want to say I appreciate y'all having me on. I'll be on next week as long as But I'll holler at y'all.
Malachi.
Thanks.
Appreciate you, man.
There's
go ahead.
You got your majors out there in ESPN and Showtime and DAZN, and then there's a fourth one, and that's a combination of a bunch of little ones. It's really not that different. And as far as it is different
because we wasn't paying for all that stuff in the past. We only had like HBO and kind of like some Showtime.
And prior to that, there was no paying. It was all on TV, and that's all fine.
ESPN fights nights, yeah.
No, but the idea is that as far as big prize fights, I think that frequency is where it's always been. I don't see that coming down at all. I think that it's always been at that rate. Matchups, cards, fights, frequency, it's all the same. I don't see any difference, and I don't see the numbers dwindling in boxing either. There's reports that it's a shrinking sport and it's a niche sport. Yeah, when you compare it to NFL, sure it is. Compare it to hockey, sure it is. Compare it to NBA, of course it is. Of course it is.
In America, in the heartland, it's over by you, James, boxing is alive and thriving, so you don't see it. Here in Illinois, boxing's all but gone. I mean, it is literally all but gone. Yeah, I mean, you got Chicago, but even then, there is few fights, right, that I can even make it out to. St. Louis, Missouri has absolutely nothing professional. They have some amateur bouts every once in a while, but nothing else. I mean, just in 2012, I went and watched a fight in St. Louis, Devin Alexander versus Maidana. It left there, and pro boxing died after that. They have not returned to St. Louis. So, yeah, I mean, it is still alive in areas, I think, on the coast that does really well, but through the heartland, boxing has died and died quickly. Because, I mean, you're talking 10 years ago. So in that 10 years, it's gone the way of the dodo.
I'm
when you see it on...
Though, I would imagine to see a lot more stuff in Ohio. Ohio's got a huge boxing industry.
Right.
And they fight outside of Ohio. But
Right.
Toledo and Cincinnati, I'm kind of surprised about that.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say about it too is like, you look, Lucas, I don't know about there, but even when you have a major card on and you just turn it to your local news and you go, you're listening to the sports part and they don't even mention anything about boxing. Like it's not even on the local. It's not even like a recap of what just happened. It's like it didn't exist. It didn't even happen.
That applies to major
and
fights.
we're like a little boxing hub here in the Tampa Bay area,
Yeah.
And they still don't have it on because it's not enough interest.
But I'm in a major
as far as their standards are concerned.
I'm in a major market in Los Angeles, and the real thing is that if you have Canelo fight or any huge fight, there'll be no mention of it on sporting news whatsoever. NBC, CBS, ABC, you name it. They will not mention boxing.
No.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
We're totally in the closet here, as far as mainstream goes.
Right. Yeah, and that's what numbers I'm talking about is the mainstream numbers.
Yeah, I mean you're right. It's became more and more niche as it's gone along, and I fear it's going to continue that way. Let's see. If the networks start telling management who they want to showcase, that would help. But I think part of it is what we're going to come to next, and that's Jake Paul taking on Rahman Jr.
Let's move along.
I'm glad he's fighting an actual boxer.
He's got a boxer.
But my only problem is I think if this man makes it to the final bell, no matter what the fight looks like, I think Jake Paul's going to get the nod. Look, and you all can call me crazy and all that, but boxing was removed from the Olympics for a reason. Okay, this is massive corruption. There's another reason why nobody wants to watch it. Why would I want to tune in to a sport that is pre-predicted before it even begins?
Okay, but no, was it corruption on the professional level or at the amateur level? Big difference.
The amateur level with the Olympics.
I think it's all around.
I mean,
well, if it's at the amateur level, imagine what it's at the professional level.
There's no corruption at the professional level because there's no rules.
How can something be corrupt when there's no rules? There's no associations. It's no standard, regulations. So everything is a free for all.
It is. You have to have written laws in order to break
funny.
them. It doesn't work that way in boxing. Everyone does whatever the heck they want.
And I think that's something that you guys can talk about Jake Paul, but let me tell you something. That's a smart cookie. That's a smart dude because he sit up there and he's like, investigating and researching this sport. And he's seeing all these big gaps. And wait a minute, you're saying I can do this? For real? Like, and there's nobody I have to pay, or I can just create my own promotional company and you like
Right.
he figured out the game in record time. So now we're sitting here talking and discussing the fact that he's no longer fighting Tommy Fury, but he's going to be fighting Rahman Jr., which I don't even know much about him. If anybody can fill me in on his
Well,
record, I'm sitting wondering, like, what record does he have?
No, I don't know much about his record, but his father is a heavyweight champion.
Right, I know that.
Yes, you know that. Everyone knows that.
Right, but it's still not telling me where he's at as a professional fighter, a boxer. And the thing of it is that Tommy was supposed to facilitate Paul finally fighting a boxer. Well, now we have a boxer in Rahman Jr., but we don't know the level of Rahman Jr. So we are still to the place where we're going to be still thirsty for Paul to fight someone with a better boxing record that we know.
He's still a professional boxer, so it's a lot better than fighting Nate Robinson or some crap like that. A hell of a lot better. But let me just say this about Jake Paul. And this article just went viral on ESPN, and I have to respect it. Jake Paul says long-term goal, he wants to be boxing light heavyweight champion. So he actually is now admitting that he's dedicated himself to the sport of boxing completely, 100%, and that his goal is to one day be a light heavyweight champion. He's only 25 years old. You might frown upon how he introduced himself and got himself in the sport and in the game, but he's already a huge major promotional draw without fighting a professional fight yet. And if that's his goal and that's what he wants to do and he accomplishes it, you have to take your hat off to that, because that is a hell of a goal, especially in that division, because look at the current champs that are in that division.
Look, I respect the goal. I respect that. I don't know if he's actually believing that or if that's just something to try to get people to bite on the fights that he's doing, because I honestly don't think it's possible for him. I mean, not at all.
He's fighting with some. I mean, he's training with a really.
He is with BJ Flores and
right, like he has a legitimate training team, and if he's dedicated, I don't see a problem with giving him a chance to face some talent and get to that level of a championship. And with the type of following he has, he's not going to have to, do the hard way. He's going to like fast track to that championship, either vacant belt or whatever they're going to have for him. Like he's going to be fast tracked to that opportunity. But this, I guess, it would be a great test. I see Dale is saying that he has a 12-1 record. My thing was when I went to look up the record, I wasn't really, recognizing a lot of names, but I understand that, when you're 12-1, you're not, you're just taking those baby steps to try to get better. You know what I'm saying? And hone in on your different technical aspects of your game. So it's gonna be, fighters that you're not necessarily gonna, recognize their name yet. I just still wish that it was Tommy, because it would have been a little bit better as far as, just hyping up the fight and having it be more exciting. And he's still saying, according to ESPN, he's still stating that he would still be willing to fight Tommy Fury after this fight. I'm like, let Tommy go. I'm like, let's go on to the next guy. Let's get some new blood.
Why is it so dead set on Tommy Fury?
Tommy, yeah, what is that about? That he just wants to fight him so bad that he's willing to give him a third chance at backing out of a fight.
Right. Probably because he's not a knockout artist.
His fault. But Shakura, for Rahman Jr., he's 12-1. He has 6 KOs. But it's also notably that he is actually a heavyweight. He normally fights at about 224 pounds. He's gonna have to drop 24 pounds to get down to 200 or under 200 for this fight, or 200 to 200 for this fight. Also, so that's a factor. Also, they are sparring partners. He has sparred with Jake Paul before, and I quote Jake Paul, "If anything in the sparring session, he got the better of me. That was 2 years ago. And I believe in the past 2 years, I've worked harder than him." So that's to shed light on this fight, that it is a little bit tainted towards
a little bit
direction, but
a little bit. I can smell the setup from here, Rob. I can smell the setup from here. Look, he is worth too much money. This is going to be entertainment, okay? He's going to come out there and win. I don't know how he's going to do it yet, but whatever. He's going to be set up. It sounds set up. It smells set up. Looks set up. It's going to be set up, okay? This is just how it is. I'm sick of it because it's already playing into the bad side of boxing. I don't want to see any more of these. I wish he would go away. If he did take it seriously and was talking like you're saying, I'm all for it. If Jake Paul wants to get in there and actually fight, okay, let's stop this other bullshit of setting up. How are you going to fight one of your sparring partners? Like, just go in here with somebody that you have no ties with that has a somewhat decent record. I don't even say he's got to be undefeated. I'm not asking you to beat a world beater. I'm asking you to beat a real boxer in a real ring in the same damn weight division. That's all I want.
Okay, but you said the magic word. You said the magic word, entertainment.
Right.
What it is. And that's all this is. We'll look at Jake Paul record unless I want to follow him.
I mean, yeah, when you add in the sparring and all this kind of stuff, you really do get that aspect of like, okay, so they know each other well, and you know, they know each other's quirks, and they know different things that each of them is able to do. There's a familiarity there. And let's not forget, this is another last minute replacement with the fight coming up in a couple of weeks, right? So, you know, like you can't expect too much. And like he might spend the entire time trying to lose weight, like you know, like Rob was saying.
Well, he has to lose that weight in order for him to fight at that, because it's a cruiserweight bout. But yeah, I don't know. That's all I got.
It's agonizing to keep seeing it. You know, boxing's been made a joke of, and that's what I see this as. I think Jake and his brother have exploited the really bad side of boxing, just the entertainment side of boxing. And I'm honestly sick of the entertainment side of boxing. I just want to see the sport, and the sport is not existent anymore. It's gone.
I understand what you're saying, but let's give the man credit for being etched in history. He will forever be etched in history because he did make the greatest, because he did promote the greatest women's fight in history. You do have to give him credit for that.
I'll give him credit for that.
Definitely supporting the women is like a real highlight of his career in boxing for me. But I want to see him also, because I feel like he does some serious training. So I think that his team needs to start believing in the fact that he can also try to, you know, have a legitimate boxing career too.
Right.
Well, I mean, I look at it this way. Here's kind of some breaking news. I think the WBO ordered fight between Dimitri Bivol and Zurdo Ramirez. Okay. It's not cast in stone, but it's been ordered by the WBO. Now these guys, you're talking about Jake Paul and
they're like in the light heavyweight category.
I don't know how to pronounce his name. Okay, so that's the next weight up. But I mean, if they were in the same division, do you think these guys could possibly mix it up? It would be a massacre. It'd be an absolute massacre. So that's why I don't recognize this stuff as boxing. You guys call it boxing or entertainment. It's what it is. It's a sideshow. And that's, you know, I'll let it be. It doesn't bother me anymore. My perception of what it's going on or what is going on. It's what it is. It's entertainment.
I wish I could turn
It's-
that blind eye to it, James. I just can't, man. I can't. We don't really see one-on-one basketball between, LeBron and Jordan for a pay-per-view, and they're milking the sport of basketball. That's not happening.
But there is. There's 3-on-3, and it's all the older guys that are.
Yeah, that's
retired.
3-on-3.
I've never seen that. Never heard of it.
Yeah, Ice Cube
that's news to me.
He's the founder of that league.
I don't know much about it, but there's a parallel there.
Okay, but that's not disguised, right? Like he's not just gonna Ice Cube's not joining the Lakers. You know what I mean?
No.
That's not happening.
He was an organizer.
Yes, retired. It's retired NBAers, NBA ballers,
right.
and they fight 3-on-3.
But the public can tell the difference between 3-on-3 and then the NBA. This is disguised as boxing, right? This is like, oh, it's actually boxing, but the people in the know are the only ones that are like, man, that ain't fucking boxing, right? All these novices that run the pay-per-views, which really run the business of the sport of boxing, is believing that this shit is boxing, and it's not fucking boxing.
I have a feeling that it's a totally different fan base too.
Right.
Entertainment fights.
Yeah, like they have their major, YouTube following at these events. As a matter of fact, they had one that sold out the arena over in Tampa recently, a few months back, probably May, I think it was. They had 2 legitimate professional bouts on the card, and the rest were YouTubers against each other. Sold out. So at least those people were able to see 2 legitimate professional bouts and see what it was really about, while they were still at that event. And I think that's the only way that we're going to start being able to try to really cross over people. Is like you can't take fans and you don't ever show them real boxing and you think that they're going to love boxing because they came and watched their favorite YouTuber. That's not how it's going to work. Like they actually have to be introduced to the sport, to the real sport of professional bouts in order to appreciate that when they seeing them, rock'em sock'em YouTube fights.
Right. I'd be okay with some celebrity boxing. For a while there, Justin Bieber was talking about fighting Tom Cruise. If you want to put celebrity boxing and then put that, I think that's cool. I will watch, Tom Cruise beat the shit out of Justin Bieber, whatever. But let's not disguise it and have Jake Paul act like he's an actual boxer. Let's not do that. If he wants to do that, then do that. But don't sit here and disguise it as something that's not.
Yeah, but I mean,
he's
sanctioned and licensed as a boxer, and in this next fight, is exactly what he's doing. He's fighting,
and he's training as a professional boxer.
He's taking that step.
Here's my question now.
I appreciate,
and I want to figure it out. Right?
Yeah.
Is a setup fight illegal? Is that illegal?
I think it could be, but there's no rules.
Because you're betting. Obviously, you got
the outcome, right?
There's
the outcome is a setup outcome.
There's
illegal.
No rules.
Boxing's the Wild West, man. I don't even know anymore. I'm done. James, go ahead. Sorry, buddy.
Well, I just want to counter what you said a few minutes ago. I think boxing's in a good place. We have good promoters. We have excellent fighters. We have good platforms, broadcasting platforms to bring this on. I think we're in a good place, and I think we're headed in the right direction. The fight frequency is a little bit low, and there's a lot of BS going on. That will never change. That's something that I've begun to accept, that my perception of boxing has changed. Because I was like where you are. I'm like, man, this is just a freaking joke. There's a lot of that going on. We know it. And we can call bullshit on a lot of things. A lot of judging, a lot of matchups,
I mean, but this is literally, this is the things that you just mentioned, James, those are things that happen over time. Yeah. I mean, from the beginning of the sport, it was corruption. It was the mafia involved. They were backing, these fights to occur, it started with that. So to think that this is a new thing for there to be corruption is kind of like,
it's
naive.
Of course. I totally agree with that. the mob's always been involved, and I think they
and
still
it's
are
still
to an
involved,
extent.
obviously. I mean, you look at the
So-
Fury situation. He can't get into America. Rob, go ahead.
So, in case you were wondering about rapid fire, let's go ahead and start this shit off right now, James.
I
Yes, sir.
I was done, and I was gonna hand it off to you. So take it away.
Because I completely disagree with that statement right there. I do not think that boxing is in a good place. I do not think we have good networks. When you look at Showtime, they're playing a fight, showing a fight. What now? Maybe 3-4 times a year now on regular Showtime. HBO is out the picture, and you used to see with HBO is you used to see very high caliber quality matchups on a Saturday night. Any
Because they
given
had no
Saturday night,
competition, though.
Right. Yeah.
any Saturday night you could turn to it. What we're getting now on ESPN is a bunch of lower prospects. I mean, I'll ask you this question. When have you ever seen a 4-0, 2-0? Hell, they're even showing debuts on prime time ESPN boxing now. You never would get that on prime time television.
Rob, I know you don't hear this a lot from me. I'm agreeing with you. James, I can't get with you because one, we don't have a Friday night fights. We don't have a building type thing. Yeah, we got Showtime Boxing Generations, but that's so few and far between. Like every Friday night we had Friday night fights, and there were so many people that were brought up that way. It helped the business, it helped them grow. We don't have anything remotely to that. I've canceled Showtime and DAZN because Showtime is too few and far between of any fights happening, where DAZN is just, why am I paying you money when I can't even watch half the time I'm trying to?
I'm not saying that boxing is perfect. What he said is true.
No.
That's true. I agree with that. It's not perfect. It's never been perfect, and it never will be. It's
But how can it be in a good place when it's worse off than what it was 5-10 years ago?
I think it's better.
You think it's better than 5 to 10 years ago?
You know, you've always had these matchups. You've always had these undercards. You've always had debuts. You've always had. Sometimes they show up for different reasons.
I disagree. If you look at pay-per-views, they were stacking cards. They had a lot more quality boxing happening 5 to 10 years ago.
There's been a lot of shitty pay-per-views, no question. We were talking about that a few shows ago, where towards the end of the year, it was just all pay-per-view, and it was just a bunch of crap. I know that.
Yeah.
I paid for some of it. I know it.
What I'm saying is you can have both bad. My mindset is you can have both bad and good aspects of boxing today. For one thing, like we are seeing fighters grow, like Xander Zayas. I've been able to see him from the beginning of his career to where he's at now, and it makes you a huge, a better fan for that particular boxer when you can see them making those better, those baby steps up.
And he's a top rank.
Yeah, he's top rank. Okay. Yes, right. But before that, he was Telemundo. He was on Telemundo a lot. I could still see him on there. But what I'm saying is, like, you can still see more fighters being developed now than you used to. You didn't see an Olympian when they first started, went pro. Now I'm seeing a couple of Olympians that are pro debuting. I've seen that on some of these platforms, and that's different. We're not used to actually seeing them start their career out, is what I'm saying. So in that respect, I do feel like it's better than what it was for fans to be able to grow with the fighter.
Right. It's not a bad thing.
Right. But then on the other hand, I can see that the corruption and the different, the ways you have to watch the sport if you're not really into it. Who wants to buy a DAZN, pay-per-view when you got to pay for the plan for the DAZN first before you can even pay for the for the actual pay-per-view. Top Rank did the same thing on ESPN. Like, these are things that are making it more difficult. So it's easier to see it because you can see it on Wi-Fi. You don't have to have cable. But then on the opposite end, you're having to try to find a way to purchase what you want to see without having to purchase an entire year of a plan or even an extra month of a plan. You see what I'm saying? Like, so there's good and bad occurring at the same time for me. Like, that's my opinion.
So,
to watch a lot of this stuff, you got to jump through a bunch of hoops, and they take your money. And who's not taking your money these days? Turn on your computer, ads after ad after ad, trying to sucker you into some other bullshit.
Viagra today.
my phone's listening to me right now. I'm gonna have ads after this about boxing.
Go.
That's true.
Hold on. Dale Peoples is putting it in perspective here, though, Shakura. Because if you want to see Xander Zayas, why don't you want to see him every week, possibly on a Friday Night Fights, or on a show like that where you actually see him grow? And then
I saw him grow. I saw him on Telemundo first, and then after that, he was on Top Rank on the ESPN Plus app. Now we're seeing him on regular TV. I mean, I've been able to follow him.
You've been lucky and able to follow him. Like you said, though, there's hoops to jump through now. Boxing is not an accessible sport.
Yeah, and I love Friday Night Fights with Teddy Atlas. Don't get me wrong, I do. But that's not here. That's not an option. So what I'm saying is you're still able to see some of these fighters growing and going up the ranks with the platform that we do have available to us now. But the bad part of it is that you got to figure out the hoops and different things that you got to pay for in order to still see them.
Mm-hmm.
And you barely can see him. But also, and put it in perspective, what I'm talking about and Lucas knows, because me and Lucas have both been there live. We've been to the ESPN events. They never had. They had the card. They had on the sheet the non-televised prelim fights, and that's where they would show the debut.
Right.
That's where they would show the 4-0s, the 8-0s. So that's where you would see like the Xander Zayas. Okay. But then you had the main platform where you could see a guy like Boots Ennis. And then you can see Boots Ennis grow out of ESPN into HBO primetime premiere fight. That's what the sport is missing.
I agree.
But now you see Ennis Boots on the preliminaries as the main event, because now what they do is they break up a night of fighting, right? And they have two basic main events, because you got the 2 hours before that you see on the lesser sports station, and then you jump over to the major station or the channel in order to see the main event. So now they've broken up the card in two, but you still got to see that Ennis Boots going up the ranks that way.
Right. They did that here in California recently.
Yeah, that's like right. It's a secondary card. It's like two cards that they've stacked on top of each other, basically. So you see the first 2 hours on one station, then it goes over to another channel or network for the main event. So that's another 2 hours. So they're televising 4 hours in a slot, as opposed to just 2 hours of the televised time. So they've actually doubled the amount of time the network normally, has the boxing event on, but it's broken into those two network channers. So it's there, but it's hard. If you're not paying attention.
More holes or hoops to jump through. Rob, anything else?
I'm gonna have one coming up, but I want to take some more time to invest in a little bit of research on it first. So that'll be coming up maybe next week once I have the research that I have.
Well, I look forward to it. Can we get a hint as to what it is?
Off air.
All right. I want to thank y'all for coming back on. It was a great show. Great way to come back. So thank you all, Malachi, Rob, James, Sakura. Thank you all for coming on. And everybody that's listening, don't forget to check us out 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday. And as you heard, we don't pull any punches. We'll see you next week.
Glad to be back, guys.